Okay, boys and girls, this begins packet number 3. All right, it's going to say multiple representations. It's how we give the same information, but it's going to look a little differently. Now, we're talking about a number line, so we're going to fill in down here first. So use a parentheses when you have an open circle. Use brackets when you have a filled circle. Use parentheses when the graph is approaching negative infinity or infinity. Remember that negative infinity is always on the left and positive infinity is always on the right. So remember, this is positive infinity, this is the negative infinity. All right, so let's look down here so that this will make a little more sense. If we have the inequality x is greater than 4, then on our graph at 4, we use an empty circle, and since the variable is on the left, it shades to the right. And remember, this is going all the way from positive 4 to positive infinity. Our set notation says that x such that the whole set of numbers is every number greater than negative 4. Interval notation looks like this. And this is much easier to see if we look at the graph itself. When we have an empty circle, there's a parentheses. And when you go to infinity, here's another parentheses. So we're basically showing how we could enclose the entire graph. All right, let's look at number 2. So we have x is less than 10. So on our graph, we put 10. Since it's less than and not equal to, we do an empty circle. We shade left. And this graph is approaching negative infinity. So our set notation is x such that the entire set is every value of x that's less than 10. Our interval notation will look like this. A parentheses at negative infinity and a parentheses at 10. We always read left to right. So our interval notation, we parentheses, negative infinity, comma, 10, parentheses. This means our interval is any number from negative infinity to positive 10. All right, let's look at this inequality. Now we have a problem because we have x's on the right instead of left. So we need to flip that over so that we have x greater than 5. Now we can graph it at 5. And we have an empty circle. We're going to shade to the right. This is approaching positive infinity. Let's make this an equal to underneath here because I want you to put a filled circle here and then shading to the right. Our set notation is x such that x is in the set of x is greater than or equal to 5. All of the numbers that are greater than or equal to 5. Now to do our interval notation, at a filled circle we have a bracket. It's always a parentheses at an infinity. So it's going to look like this. Bracket 5, comma, infinity, parentheses. If we're looking at just the interval notation, this would mean every number between 5 and infinity, and the brackets tell us it includes 5 as well. All right, let's look at the next example. If we subtract 3x from both sides, we're left with 3 is less than 2, which is a false statement. That means there's no number ever that's going to work. So we can't shade anything here. So our set notation is x such that the set is the empty set. There's nothing in it. So there's no interval notation. All right, let's look at the next example. If we subtract 3x from both sides, we get 5 greater than 2. That's a true statement. And since we have a true statement, every number works. Our whole entire set of numbers from negative infinity to positive infinity. This means x such that the whole set of numbers is the set of all real numbers. That's what this R represents. Interval notation, anytime we have infinity, we have parentheses. So we have parentheses, negative infinity, all the way to positive infinity. This interval notation represents the set of all real numbers. Let's look at the next page. It says, put in interval notation and draw a graph of each inequality. So we have x is greater than or equal to 4. So here's our 4, and it's equal to, so it has a filled circle. The variable is on the left, so we shade to the right where the arrow is pointing. And remember, this is approaching infinity. So now, to put this in the interval notation, remember that we have a bracket when we have a filled circle and a parentheses at infinity. So now we just write exactly what we see from left to right. Bracket 4, comma, infinity, parentheses. This means the interval from positive 4 to infinity, and the bracket tells us that the 4 is included. Look at number 2, x is less than 6. So we have an empty circle, shading left, and it's approaching negative infinity. Now we want to get ready for interval notation. There's a parentheses at negative infinity and a parentheses at 6. Since the 6 is not included, always left to right, parentheses, negative infinity, comma, 6 parentheses. This cannot be 6 to negative infinity. Wrong, wrong, wrong. You have to go what direction? Left to right. All right, number 3, x is less than negative 2 or equal to, so we want to put a filled circle. Since it's less than, it's going left. This graph is approaching negative infinity. Now we want to enclose our solution set using parentheses and brackets. Parentheses at infinity, brackets for filled circles. Left to right, parentheses, negative infinity to negative 2, and negative 2 has a bracket since it's included. You pause the video and try number 4 and number 5. Number 4 is going to look like this. We put a empty circle at 8. Since it's pointing right, we shade right. It's approaching positive infinity. Now we want to put parentheses at negative 8 and parentheses at negative infinity, enclosing our solution set. It's parentheses because it's an empty circle. So we have parentheses 8, comma, infinity. And there's always parentheses with infinity. Number 5, it's at negative 10. Empty circle, shading left, approaching negative infinity. Now enclose your solution set. So we have parentheses at a negative number, parentheses at an empty circle. So doing left to right, we have negative infinity to negative 10, parentheses. Let's look at our next set. Now we want to write each interval as an inequality and draw the graph. It's going to be easier to draw the graph first. So we know our number is at negative 8. And because there's a bracket here, that means this is a filled circle. And this is on the right, so it's going this direction. We know that it's at negative infinity, which is here. That means we shade from here to here. And our arrow is going this direction. And we always have parentheses at negative 8. So now, what does this mean? We want to write it as an inequality. So we have our variable x, which we always want on the left. It's shading left, so it's less than. It has a filled circle, so that means it's equal to, and the number they give us is -8. So now we have our inequality, our graph, and our interval notation. Number 7, our number is 5. And because there is a bracket, it is a filled circle. It's going toward positive infinity, which means we shade this direction. All right, now we can use that information to write our inequality. Variable on the left is shading to the right, so it's greater than. There's a filled circle, so it's also equal to. And our number is 5. All of the numbers that are greater than or equal to 5. This is what our graph shows. That's what our interval shows. All of the numbers from 5 to positive infinity. All right, let's try number 8. Your number is -2. It has a parentheses and not a bracket. That means an empty circle. It's approaching infinity, so it's shading this direction. So we're showing that this graph is any number, that's our x, greater than, we don't put an equal to here because it's an empty circle, -2. Now pause the video, you work 9 and 10, then restart the video and check your answer with mine. On the graph, we have -10 because there's a bracket here, it's a filled circle. It's approaching positive infinity, which means it's shading this direction. So what we're showing is all numbers, that's our x, that are greater than, and because it's filled, equal to -10. Number 10, we have 6. Because there's a parentheses here, it's an empty circle. It's the numbers between -infinity and 6, which means we're shading this direction. So now what we're representing is all numbers, that's x, that are less than 6. Not equal to, because there's not a bracket or a filled circle. All right, now if you'll look in your packet at the page that says interval notation, this is just a quick recap. Interval notation is another way of expressing an answer to an inequality. It uses parentheses and brackets to show where the graph starts and ends. Parentheses mean not included or open. Used when a graph starts or ends with an open circle. Brackets means included or closed. Used when the graph ends on a closed circle. So example number 1, we want to solve first. So we could either do the distributive property or we can divide. I'll do the distributive property first. So 4 times x is 4x. 4 times 3 is 12. That's greater than -24. Subtract 12 from both sides. And you get 4x is greater than -36. Divide by 4. Notice that the number that we're dividing by here is positive, so we do not flip our inequality symbol. So we get x is greater than -9. Now for those of you who want to shortcut and not do the distributive property, you could do it like this. Divide both sides by 4. When you do, these cancel. You get x plus 3 is greater than -6. Subtract 3 from both sides, and you get x less than -9. Regardless of which way we solved it, we still got x is greater than -9. So now let's graph that. So at -9, because it's not equal to, it's an empty circle, our variable is on the left, so we can shade in the direction the arrow is pointing. Remember that this is approaching infinity. Now to do our interval notation, just visualize enclosing this in solution set. Remember parentheses at open circle, parentheses at infinity. So what we get is parentheses -9, comma, infinity, parentheses. All right, let's look at number 2. We're going to need to distribute first. So we get x minus 3x minus 6 greater than 4. Combine your like terms. X minus 3x is negative 2x minus 6 is greater than 4. And then add 6 to both sides. And you get negative 2x is greater than 10. Now, I want to remind everybody, when you multiply or divide by a negative number, which is what we're going to do here, your symbol flips. So now we have x less than negative 5. So on our graph, we put negative 5, empty circle, it's less than, so it shades left, and it's approaching negative infinity. Now to get ready for our interval notation, enclose your solution set visually. So it's a parentheses at a negative and a parentheses at an empty circle. So our interval notation is negative infinity to negative 5 parentheses. Sorry, made a mistake here. We can never have a bracket at infinity. It will always be a parentheses. All right, let's look at number 3. I want you to pause the video. I want you to work number 3 on your own. When you're finished, restart the video and check your answer with mine. We start by using the distributive property. So we have 7x minus 2x, and negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8, is less than or equal to negative 2. Combine like terms. 7x minus 2x is 5x, plus 8 is less than or equal to negative 2. Subtract 8, and you get 5x is less than or equal to negative 10. Divide both sides by 5 to get x by itself. Now we're not going to flip this inequality because the number that we divided by was positive. Negative 10 divided by positive 5 is negative 2. Now we've got the equal here, which means that we're going to have a filled circle at 2, and the variable is on the left, so we shade that following the direction of the arrow, so it's approaching negative infinity. Now to get ready for interval notation, parentheses at infinity, brackets at a filled circle. So we're going to write that left to right always, parentheses, negative 8, comma, negative 2, bracket. This means everything between negative 2 and negative infinity. All right, let's do number 4. Let's distribute first. You get negative 8x. Negative 8 times negative 1 is positive 8. Minus x is less than or equal to negative 28. Combine like terms. Negative 8x minus x is negative 9x. Plus 8 is less than or equal to negative 28. Our next step would be to subtract 8 from both sides. So that's going to give us negative 9x less than or equal to negative 36. Now to solve, we divide both sides by negative 9. Now notice here that we divided by a negative number. That means our inequality symbol needs to flip. And negative 36 divided by negative 9 is positive 4. So at positive 4, we put a filled circle. And since the variable is on the left, we go the direction the arrow is pointing. So we shade to the right, approaching infinity, and close. So we have a bracket for a filled circle, parentheses at infinity. So it will look like bracket 4, comma, infinity, parentheses, meaning every number between 4 and infinity, and the 4 is included. All right, number 5, we have variable on both sides. So remember, we always want to do variables first, and we want to always keep the variable on the left when possible. That means we need to get rid of this minus 2x. The opposite of minus 2x is plus 2x. So we have 8x plus 1 is less than 9. Now we subtract 1 from both sides, and we get 8x is less than 8. Divide both sides by 8, and we get x is less than 8 divided by 8 is 1. We did not flip because the number that we divided by was positive. So now at 1, we do an empty circle. It's less than, so we shade to the left, approaching negative infinity, and close your solution set. So we have parentheses at infinity symbols, parentheses at open, circles. So left to right, we have negative infinity, comma, 1 parentheses. Now pause the video. You work number 6 on your own. Then restart the video and check your answer with mine. We start by doing variables first. We want to keep the variable on the left, which means we need to subtract 5x to get rid of the 5x on the right. 2x minus 5x is negative 3x. Bring down the minus 1, less than or equal to 20. Add 1 to both sides. When you do, you get negative 3x is less than or equal to 20 plus 1 is 21. Divide both sides by negative 3. Notice that you're dividing by a negative number, which means your inequality goes from being less than or equal to sorry kiddos, instead of being less than or equal to, it's going to be greater than or equal to 21 divided by negative 3 is negative 7. So we have negative 7, and because of the equal to here, we have a filled circle. The variable's on the left, so we can shade the direction that arrow is pointing. So it's approaching infinity. And close, remember that it's a bracket at a filled circle, always a parentheses for infinity. So to write it in interval notation, it's bracket negative 7 comma infinity, parentheses, meaning all of the numbers from negative 7 to infinity, including negative 7 itself. All right, you try number 7. Remember to do the distributive property first. So we're going to distribute the negative. We have 3 minus 2x, and negative times negative is positive 7, less than or equal to 34 minus 6x. Combine like terms. On the left, we have 3 and 7, so we have negative 2x. 3 plus 7 is 10, less than or equal to 34 minus 6x. Variables first, keep the variable on the left, which means we need to add 6x to both sides. Left to right, negative 2x plus 6x is 4x. Bring down the plus 10, less than or equal to 34, and this cancels. Next step would be to subtract 10 from both sides. When we do, we get 4x is less than or equal to 24. Now divide both sides by 4. Because that's a positive number, we do not flip, so we get x less than or equal to 6. On our graph, we do a filled circle at 6. The variable is on the left, so we shade the direction the inequality is pointing. So we shade towards negative infinity and close. Remember parentheses at infinities, brackets at filled circles. To write our interval notation now, it's parentheses, negative infinity, comma, 6 bracket. All right, I'm going to skip down to number 10 and do the hard one. So we're going to distribute first, and we're going to go ahead and do that on both sides. So negative 1 times 3x is negative 3x. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. Minus 2x greater than. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. Negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. bring down the minus 2. Combine your like terms. On the left, we have negative 3x and negative 2x that need to be combined. So we have negative 5x minus 3 greater than. On the left, we have negative 4x. Now we want to combine our like terms here. So we've got positive 8 and negative 2. So positive 8 plus negative 2 is positive 6. Now we want to keep our variable on the left. So we want to add 4x to both sides. When we do, negative 5x plus 4x is negative x minus 3 is greater than 6. Now we add 3 to both sides, and we get negative x is greater than 9. We're not finished. We have to divide by negative 1. Because we divided by a negative number, we have to flip our inequality symbol. So instead of greater than, it becomes less than. And 9 divided by negative 1 is negative 9. Empty circle at negative 9. Variables on the left, so shade the direction of the inequality that's pointing. And we're approaching negative infinity. Now we want to enclose. And remember that there's parentheses always at infinity and parentheses at empty circles. Now to write that out in an interval notation, it will be parentheses, negative infinity, comma, 9 parentheses. Right, boys and girls, you should work the next page in the packet on the homework.